Hi, I'm your Gemini friend. So this video is going to be about Venus in Cancer. This is my Venus sign. So if you want to know more about Venus, I do have a video in the description that goes more in depth into what it represents in our chart. But this video is going to cover the aesthetic material side of Venus in Cancer, and then the self-worth and values part of it, then love and relationships, and then I'll wrap up any growth opportunities, challenges at the end. And if you're interested in a natal chart reading or a synastry reading, I do offer these. More information in the description for that too. So when it comes to Venus in Cancer, the aesthetic material side of this, it's less about the actual physical aesthetic and more about the ideas behind it. This is a very nurturing sign and it's strongly tied to home and family. So attachments to items, it's more about the sentimental attachments, the personal meaning that things have for you. And a lot of this is going to be determined by early life, by growing up, by maybe your relationship with your mother or your family. Or if it's not about the family, there's something about home, about taking care of things. This is inherently a pretty domestic placement to have, and that is not saying anything about gender roles, not pushing anything traditional. It's just that this sign has a strong focus on the home and on like cooking, taking care of people, making things comfortable and homey. When it does come to a specific aesthetic though, I always associate the ocean with Cancer because Cancer is the moon and the ocean are tied together. So this can be like nautical themes, pearls. I love pearls, and like reflective things that are shiny and reflective like the moon, and just general like ocean themed things, shells. You could love the idea of being by the sea. And this is also very connected to the earth and connected to tradition when it comes to that home family thing. So traditions, family heirlooms, things that are passed down, things that are something that you do regularly. There can be a lot of attachment to these ideas. The sentimentality is really key here. Like when it comes to dressing and clothes, I'm gonna offer a lot of personal insight just since this is my placement. And I don't really have a style. I prefer just comfort. This is a very comfort-oriented sign, but my favorite thing is to wear the clothes of other people, loved ones, whether that's like my partner, my family. I love clothes that have come from other people, or even like estate jewelry, things that come from memories or from connections between people. Even just little romantic things like a locket, something that's linked to a person. Cancer energy is inherently tied to other people. It really doesn't like to exist alone. And you could find that when you are alone, you want things really comfy, really soft, really cozy. And this can also be a big sign of just wanting to be at home, enjoying spending your time at home. And when it comes to your home and the way you decorate, the way that you just have the energy of the entire place, the atmosphere should feel comfortable. It should feel like you. It should feel like when you come in, this is your sanctuary. Your space is sacred. So really taking care of your home is so important with this placement. It can cause so much distress and just underlying uncomfortable energy when things are not in order in that way. And when it comes to like art, music, you could really like things that hit home. There's so much to be said about like music taste and preferences and all of the different parts within our chart, because I really associate Cancer energy with soft, romantic, let's say the word sentimental again, sorts of music. And I do not enjoy slow, sad songs at all, but when something hits, when it's like, okay, I love the same way that that person loves. I understand the way that they're going about describing this. Like when it hits, it hits. But it's this sense of being there for someone in such an incredibly devoted way that I compare it to the unconditional love that a mother is supposed to have for their child, which sounds a little weird. So let's move into values and self-worth while I describe this. Cancer energy truly is like the mother taking care of the child, the more maternal parent, nourishment, making people feel emotionally secure and safe. And this doesn't always have to be towards a family member. This can also be towards a romantic interest. It comes from that unconditional, like, I want to take care of you. I want to make sure that you're good and that you have all your needs met. It's not about mothering. but there is that sort of potential for a selfless quality there. So when it comes to the self-worth and value of Venus, our self-worth comes from what we value, what we consider to be most important, whether that's external or internal. And the qualities that come with Venus in Cancer that are so valuable are the emotional depth, the bond that you can form with other people, the ability to sense their needs, take care of them, build a really firm, like rooted connection with someone, and just like providing an emotionally safe environment. But this sign also feels very strongly the need to belong and to be supported by other people, cared for by other people. This placement also desires to receive what it gives because this is what it values. It values the sort of safety that comes with trusting connections. And of course, we have the value of tradition, heritage, family, roots. Whatever your relationship is with your family, that isn't really the important thing here. It's more your relationship with the idea of family or of where you come from. And this can be expressed in such personal ways because your relationship with growing up, childhood, your mother, it's going to be different for everybody. The way that you experience it and the way that you interpret it and take it on in life. But there can be a strong attachment to things that you did earlier on or things that are rooted in that same warmth and familiarity that comes from childhood, things that kind of take you back in that nostalgic way. And it's really important to have a connection to your inner child here because this can be the source of so many things that we are wanting or needing that we might not even realize. The inner child isn't always loud, it's not always clear. So sometimes we have to go in and find them, figure out what it is that they're needing, but this just shows a really strong link to that part of you because it's like activated. And this also shows a lot of emotional intelligence. This is being able to respond to people's emotional needs without even having to think about it, empathy, and also a really strong protectiveness. Cancer is the crab. It's protecting its soft, mushy insides with the hard outer shell. So of course, Cancer is known to be moody and defensive, depending on what's going on. This is a very receptive to your environment sort of placement. And just sensitive in general, so it can sometimes be helpful when you're feeling uncomfortable to just scan, like, does my body feel okay? Is the environment the issue? Am I emotionally fine? Am I feeling responsible for somebody else's emotions? Do I feel like I need to carry the emotional weight of this entire room on my shoulders? You know, you can sometimes take on too much of that weight, but I'll get more in that in the challenges. But something about this protectiveness, potential for defensiveness, it does show that your vulnerability, your openness, and your willingness to open up can be something that is also extremely valuable because forming emotional connections with people where you're expressing your vulnerable side, it opens them up more to you, it makes them feel like they can trust you more, and it just ultimately shows like you're here for people. So it is important to make sure that you're not overly emotionally available to people because it can feel like a heavy weight or like a responsibility to have to take care of people in that way. So super important to make sure that you are putting your Venus energy into Venus things and not just spreading it because you can, feeling like because you sense somebody else's emotional distress, you have to be there to fix it. It's not like that unless you genuinely care about the person, unless it is a close connection. This deals with our committed relationships, our relationships and dynamics with people in general. But Venus tends to give us sorts of like lessons in this dynamics energy. So if you find that within your dynamics you are too either emotionally vulnerable, emotionally supportive, or you feel like there's just so much of that weight on you, it's just important to reassess your relationships and the amount of energy that you're putting into them, because this can be such a very, very giving sign because it's coming from that place of kind of like limitless emotional energy that can be used to support other people sometimes beyond the point where it's useful, sometimes where it's just draining you rather than actually supporting, you know? So one thing that this placement can be really great at is starting new traditions and making people feel like a family. You might really crave for even your partner to feel like a family or to make a family with them, whether that is actually having children or just creating a home with them. You could really want your partner to meet your family, to really bring everyone together. Though, of course, this depends on your relationship with your family, but this tends to be a great placement for making sure that everyone is good and kind of uniting them, making something more out of a connection. Like how we say, you know, we have friends, we have more than friends, and more than friend is like being in a romantic relationship, but I think even more than that is being family with somebody. And that's not to put a hierarchy on this at all, but I'm a Cancer Venus, and I really like to welcome people in that way. When I feel close enough to someone that I love them, then I want to make them my family. But I know that this isn't everybody's perspective, because the very concept of family can be quite heavy. So I'm kind of curious, if you have this placement, what is your relationship with your family or with your mother? Because traditionally we would think that this shows a really positive relationship with your mom, learning love from her, like that sort of thing, but people have such vastly different experiences. And I feel like I'm also kind of biased because I have the best mom. But moving on to love and relationships. So this is a deeply devoted placement. This is all or nothing in love, because it does tend to go about things slower, taking your time to open up, though not always. This can be wanting somebody, wanting comfort around you so badly that you are willing to jump into relationships before you're ready. So that's something to be aware of, that balance between a desire to be with somebody and a desire to actually have that person be the right person for you, align with your values. Take things slowly, but remain emotionally open, because this sign really is better that way. The way that Cancer energy gets growth and like resilience through pain, through difficult experiences, and through processing that pain can show so much strength. So don't shy away from difficult experiences, but also obviously don't open yourself up too much to something that's going to be bad for you. This is such an emotionally intuitive sign that you can tend to just feel in your body whether something is right for you, whether it feels good or doesn't feel good. And these intuitive parts of you do need to be honored. Of course, sometimes it's more complicated than that, but Cancer is the moon. Our moon is our internal emotional processing, who we are on the inside, and our inner world, the comfort that we have created for ourselves and the way that we nurture ourselves. So having an internal emotional environment that is healthy can be one of the best things that you can do for yourself, because then all of your relationships are going to be more healthy when you're coming at it from a place of like knowing what you want, knowing what you deserve, and also using that intuitive sense. So like I was saying before, this can definitely indicate seeing your partner and also your friends as family. You could open your home to them or enjoy spending time with people like at home. But the most important thing within a relationship is that emotional connection, because it's pretty important for this placement to feel like you really know somebody on a core level. You know what they need, but then at the same time, you also know if they're reliable, if they're going to give you what you need. That emotional bond should be number one within the relationships that you form. And this does also show a desire for like a home with a partner, and maybe even a more domestic focus. Like for me, with my Venus in Cancer, cooking for somebody is love. Taking care of their needs on that very human level is just something deeply enjoyable for me. And there's something very romantic about that, because eating, chores, these are mundane things, but when there's so much thought and love put into it, it makes something mundane into something more special. So you likely have this incredible ability to create experiences for people, whether that is cooking for them or just like presenting an area, presenting an idea. This is great at bringing people together, basically, but through something that you have put so much love and attention into. And really, sacrifice can be seen as very romantic with this placement as well. Doing something that you don't really want to, just to show that you care, that you're willing to do it for them. And that consistency can be very appreciated by some people. You can also be very like creative in the ways that you're sentimental. It's just, for example, I don't know, leaving somebody little notes or decorating something, making it cute for them. I don't know, stuff like that. It's very thoughtful on a kind of mundane level, but in a sweet way. It's just important to make sure that you're not using sacrifice as like the primary way to show that you care, and also as a sort of cry for help, like, look, I'm struggling, I need more. Sometimes we can push ourselves past the point of what's good for us just so that somebody will ask like, hey, are you okay? Maybe they'll start to take care of us. If we keep putting more energy into taking care of all of the people around us, maybe they'll notice. That sort of thing can be an issue here, but it is very important to voice your concerns and your needs and make sure that you're in a situation where they're gonna be met. Because if you can't ask for what you need, then that's probably not the best situation for you. But if you're just feeling uncomfortable, like you can't ask because you don't want to ask, or it feels selfish, or it just feels like asking for too much, it's important to make sure that you can get on that level where you're comfortable enough asking for the things that you need in order to stay happy. It's just about balancing sacrifice, service, and self-care. Because the unconditional love that you're willing to put into other people and pour into your relationships, you also deserve, and it should really start there. You should love yourself unconditionally, take care of yourself like you would if you were your own child, being your parent, parenting your inner child. But also just in the more like parenty way, you can be proud of yourself. You can really feed into that more like childlike energy, but in a loving way where you're looking at yourself as someone more innocent, someone with less experience, someone who doesn't feel like guilt and shame, who doesn't feel like you need to do all this stuff in order to feel valid or worthy of attention or love or care. Getting things right with our like core sense of self, the youngest version of us. That child you has such good intention and so much love to give, so make sure that they are getting that love from you and that they know that they can ask for it. Another thing that displacement needs in relationships is to feel seen and to feel like you're understood as a person. This idea of being cherished, super important to Cancer energy. And to be cherished is to be loved and appreciated for who you are, for what you're doing naturally, to be made to feel like enough. This is what you're willing to give to people. And again, you deserve it in return. So it's such an important thing that you're likely totally willing to see your partner, your friends, anyone that's important to you as a whole person, flaws and everything. You're willing to see them for who they really are, but like, are you willing to let them see who you really are? I assume that you desire that you want to be seen, flaws and all. You want to be just seen, accepted, loved. You might be more attuned to other people's emotions than they are to yours, but that does not mean that your emotions need to feel overlooked. And the last one here that is just so sweet to me, I feel like when it comes to your partner, so much of this can depend on you, your IC, your fourth house, other things in your chart and where your moon is, but to see your partner as home, this is really meaningful for me. It's like no matter where you live, to be with that person, to have somebody who feels like home, that you would just be fine wherever they are. This is where I live, wherever they are. So when it comes to challenges and growth opportunities, like I already mentioned, this can be a sign that's very draining. You can drain yourself by just feeling like you need to support people or feeling responsible for managing the emotions of the people around you, whether you care about them or not. Really evaluate where your emotional energy is going. And like after an interaction, if you feel bad or drained, take note of that and do what you will with the relationship. Just do what you need to do in order to protect yourself and your emotional energy, because that's a very precious part of you. And then if you're feeling unappreciated or lonely or like you're not belonging, where you are. This can bring so much insecurity. So it's really important to create security for yourself in any way that you can, which again is very, very personal. But your home, where you come home to rest to, should really be in the best shape possible, whatever that is for you. And then sometimes we can move too deep, too fast. Say we're craving family, we want that connection. We can see just like a spark of that in somebody and go all in. So taking things slowly can be so important here, because your level of investment, it can be like 3 years down the road you realize, oh, this was never working, but they're like family to you now, and that's where the sacrifice can really come in. So make sure you're not in a relationship because you've committed and have that be like the only reason. It's important that you feel secure and nourished by your relationships as well. And it can be really hard to get out of this sort of thing. So being very honest with yourself and really evaluating your feelings, what you're willing to put up with, and whether or not you should. Just all things to consider. Because sometimes we can prioritize other people's needs above our own because we're sensing them. We want to fulfill their needs, but it can feel very hard to ask. And meeting our own needs, sometimes it can be like, well, what do I even need? I need to take care of people. But no, we need to learn to receive more, and also like what it is exactly that we want to receive, whether that is emotional validation, connection, a vulnerable, trusting conversation, like all of the things that we're craving with people. This is kind of an interesting thing about Cancer energy, because it is a moody energy. It does move in cycles, and it's very influenced by external energies and by strong internal energies. So paying attention to the emotional current, and I think taking your time is a really good idea in lots of different situations with this placement, because when it comes to Venus, this is what we value, not just when it comes to like our personal values as a person, but like this thing is valuable, this material thing is valuable, money is Venus, this is our finances, this is what we are going after and acquiring, and it's about value. And value can be so many different things to all sorts of people. So I guess what I mean with this, with the moods and the cycles and the personal value, is just that it can be very confusing. It can be actually quite confusing to know how you feel or how certain things make you feel without really paying attention to it. Because one good thing about cycles is that they're cyclical. And while this can be so many different things, if we notice patterns or cycles that are ongoing, like a recurring negative experience, anything like that, paying attention to the cycles and paying attention to our emotional reactions to things, it's like taking note of all of these different things can really make sense of what seems like there's no sense there. If you're embracing the flow, say 1 minute you feel really confident, then you feel insecure, like you know it's gonna come back around again. You know that you're never going to always feel the same, but you're always the same person. So when it comes to our worth, temporary feelings are something that you need to pay attention to, because they are temporary and they are not us. They don't determine our worth, they determine various things, but they're not permanent. The only thing that's permanent is like your identity and your intrinsic value as a person. And I guess permanent's not even the right word in that case, but this is all about embracing yourself, embracing your flaws, embracing your flow, and just not letting things be so stuck or like serious in a moment, letting the emotions process, let it flow through you. When it comes to elements of flow, the important thing is to not resist it, because it's going to keep flowing. We can't like hold it back, especially such an emotional sign. But again, the emotions are the good thing here. It can feel like a lot. It can definitely feel like a lot. It can be painful to have such depth of emotion. And the way that you connect to other people, it can even feel like who can match your depth. But look for people with other water signs, especially water Venuses. But it is ultimately really crucial to build your foundation within yourself as strong as you possibly can. Your validation needs to come from you, and you should validate those things about you that you find valuable, you know? It all starts from within us. And when we have that core confidence, then people can't tell us anything otherwise. But of course, it's not easy to reach that point. But if we are validating these things about us that we love, and we're seeing that they come from a core important place within us, then that's pretty unshakable. It's kind of about not allowing your moods to fluctuate with other people's, your opinions and values even to fluctuate with other people's, just because of that very receptive, sensitive energy that can be here. It is important to keep things clear within yourself whenever you're feeling like a sudden emotion that doesn't quite make sense, or you don't know where it came from, or it feels external. Emotions are messy and it's always going to be like this. But if messy emotions are a frequent issue, then finding your own way to clean them up and regulate them while also embracing the flow and the messiness, like, this is crazy. What am I even saying? And then another thing, attachment to the past. This can be preferring things the way that they were when you grew up, or judging certain things based off of certain standards, like my family did it this way, and preferring things in that way. Of course, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can get in the way of things sometimes if we're too attached. It's just important to review our attachments and see where they're coming from. Like, if it's a more insecure, clingy, like clinging to the past because you're afraid of losing it, or you're afraid of losing a part of yourself, whatever it is behind the feelings. I guess that's what I'm getting at with all of this, is to not let your feelings get the best of you. Because while your feelings are an incredibly valuable part of you, they don't always give us the full picture. And last thing, the shell of the crab, emotional defensiveness. There can be all sorts of situations where we might feel emotionally defensive, and this can be recognizing patterns, things that we've been through before and not wanting to go through them again. But sometimes it's not that deep, and we can just be feeling emotionally defensive or moody for whatever reason. It doesn't always have to be a big reason. So, like, all of this is just, I'm advocating for more peace, more emotional regulation, and not letting that part of you really take over, but allowing it to be the best, really nurturing and feeding those loving emotions. And when it comes to the harsher emotions, the more painful emotions, the things that we don't want to face or look at, be even sweeter to those parts of you. Find those memories or whatever it's linked to and process it. Talk through it with your inner child, parent yourself. Give yourself what you needed when you didn't get it. Our strongest emotional bond is always going to be with ourselves. So that's what we need to take care of primarily. I say this because this placement can get so caught up in taking care of everything but ourselves, but you deserve that. You deserve all of the nurture and love, unconditional love that you give to the people that you love. You deserve it. Love yourself too. That's what I have to say here. So thank you so much. Please share whatever you want. I'm super curious about this. Thank you so much for supporting me as well. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I really, 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 really appreciate you. I love you. Bye.